Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez. And we are here today with Kristin Spencer, who is a storytelling obsessed, a best-selling author, certified copy editor, copywriter, ghostwriter, and offer creation specialist. She brings a fresh approach to using words to connect businesses with the people who need help most. Business writing services just got way more interesting with Christine. Welcome, Christine. It is an honor to have you today in us.
Thank you so much for having me, Maritza. I am so excited for this. I was talking to my kids about it all morning.
That is awesome. Thank you. So I love having you here because now we are going today to talk something amazing. But before we get into our topic, I would like to ask you my signature question. What is your accent and why is not an accident?
So this question has a couple of different answers for me, but when I told my kids the name of your podcast this morning, they said, "Mom, but you don't have an accent." And I said, "I don't have an accent here, but when we lived in Greece for 7 years, I definitely had an accent there. And also, I have a California accent, which means that I speak fast normally. I slur my words together, and I use certain phrases that they do not use in other states in the United States. So I've had to learn to speak slowly, to enunciate, and so that those are my two accents. I have an American accent when I speak Greek, which when they do an American accent, it's hilarious. I've heard that with because they roll their R's and Americans don't, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
And then I have my California accent, which I've really had to work on because I want people to understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand completely about how others will not understand sometimes what you're saying, and you have to kind of like accommodate your phonetics in a different way. And that brings us to our special topic today, which is you have been living abroad for a while, and not only different country, different language, and totally different culture. So
Yes.
why don't you tell me about that experience?
Okay, so I lived in Europe for around 10 years, and I first lived in Hungary for a year and a half, and Hungarian is the second most difficult language to learn. Well, it's a fight, but for the third most difficult. So it depends if you think Mandarin Chinese or Hungarian is more difficult, and Icelandic is number one.
Wow.
So I learned very little Hungarian, but if anyone Hungarian is listening, Sia, or if it's multiple people, Sziasztok. And Hungary also has my most favorite way of saying cheers or to your health is egészségedre.
Oh my goodness.
So one way that you can tell whether or not someone has lived in Hungary is the way that they say the capital, because in Magyarul, which is how you say Hungarian in Hungarian, it's Budapest because the S has a sh sound. And so if people say Budapest, you know, okay, they haven't been there. They don't have any Hungarian relatives or friends.
Awesome. And I love this. So how was you as an American, and then you went there with your husband only, right? Did you have kids?
Yes, we had our two daughters. We moved to Hungary 8 weeks after my second daughter was born.
Oh wow. She is almost Hungarian then.
Well, she doesn't actually remember any Hungarian because she was too tiny, I think.
Okay. Awesome. And how was the difference in culture for you? How was that adaptation and not only the way you talk and having to learn another language, but what was the differences that you will say, oh wow.
One of the most difficult things for me was the doctor, going to the pediatrician, because my kids got sick a lot while we were there because it was very cold and we were not used to the snow yet at that point. And also the way that different cultures treat illnesses varies a lot depending on the cultural influences on medicine. So, in the US, I think that our approach to medical treatment is very symptom based. We're looking to reduce the symptoms as quickly as possible. Whereas in European countries, they're much more concerned with dealing with the root issue first, know that as a result of that, the symptoms will eventually subside. So that was a totally different approach to everything. In Hungary specifically, they are very enthusiastic about calcium. So every time my kids would get sick, they would prescribe this like expensive calcium syrup. And I was like, okay, I've never given anyone in my life this syrup before. And I don't know if it actually helped or not. At some point, I did stop buying it because I felt like, I don't know, I wouldn't normally give this to them. Let's just see what happens if I don't.
Yes, yes, and then it that medical part, and I can relate with you. It's something that is difficult. In my country also, that when I came here, it was, why do I have to wait for the doctor for so long?
Yes, instead of just going to my local doctor who's 2 blocks away and I walk in, they know who I am, and I talk with the receptionist until I go in, and everyone knows everyone. And you go into the office and you see all your neighbors. It's a totally different experience.
Yes. Yes, and then if your appointment is at 2, they take care of you at 2 or 5 minutes before.
Right. Instead of you know your point and you buffer an hour of waiting time into that.
Yes, yes. And then you have to be there 15, 20 minutes before, things like that. Yes, no,
Yes.
yes, it is different. One other thing, how did you feel about learning another language?
So I did not learn very much Hungarian. My husband and I would memorize phrases like we knew how to ask for 4 train tickets with 2 adults and 2 kids. That was very important for us to be able to get around. We knew how to buy bus tickets. We knew how to ask for certain food. We knew what English words not to say around Hungarians because they would sound like bad words in Hungarian. So it was I felt like it was impossible for us to learn Hungarian. I have friends from the US who have learned Hungarian flawlessly. But for us, I don't think we were there long enough. A year and a half was not long enough to learn that language. And I think sometimes you do get to the point where you're realizing I'm not going to learn this language. I know I'm only going to be here for a certain amount of time. I'm going to try my best though. And the thing is, wherever you are, people appreciate that. As long as you're trying, they appreciate it. And then, as a mom, I had like a handful of little kid words that maybe people who adults when they moved to Hungary didn't know. Like I had to know how to say I have to go pee because little Hungarian kids would come up to me and say it like when I was in the nursery at church. And it was very difficult but very rewarding. And then after that is when my family moved to Athens, Greece, and we lived in a working class community, Agios Dimitrios, which there's not a ton of English speakers there. And we were trying to be fully immersed in the culture, and my kids went to Greek school. So we worked very hard to learn Greek. And I would say that I speak Greek at about a 2-year-old after 7 years of a lot of effort.
Oh, wow. So from Hungary, you moved to Athens, Greece,
Hmm.
and you are with your kids, and you were there for 7, 8 years.
Yeah, 7 years. And then I also had my son there, which there's
Okay.
this club that you join, which not everyone knows about. But if you have a baby in a country that is not your country, you join this club because it is a completely different experience than having a baby in your home country.
Oh, how amazing. So, and then that helps you with the children development and helps you have other mommies around you and things like that, like what we will call here like a mom group, something like that, or
Yeah, and I think when you're a parent and you're an immigrant, it's really hard to have that support system that you would have if you had your family around. And that's something we learned really quickly is like, oh, we can never go out on a date because we don't have anyone to babysit our kids. And being part of a community and a group that, I couldn't understand everything that was going on all the time, but once in a while, like one of their moms, the other moms in the group, the grandmother of their kids would watch our kids for us so that we could go out on a date. And they're the ones who helped me learn the words I needed. I absolutely needed in Greek, who helped me find a pediatrician. Eventually we saw a pediatrician who only spoke Greek for a while, and that was really difficult. And then eventually we found one that also spoke English that was like 2 blocks from our house. So that was helpful.
oh, great. So one of the things that you mentioned, and I remember here, I am originally from South America.
Yeah.
When I got married here with we moved in with my boyfriend from college, and we got married here.
Hmm.
And one of the things is we got married here, and then we were like going, doing all the things, and then I got pregnant. I had a child, and we're like, oh, wait a minute, we only have a few family members here.
Right.
We're gonna need a social life for this child. So I went into a mommy's group, and that was what we did, just to build up our social life. And we build up friendships, like long-lasting friendships. Some of my best friends are from that mommy's group, and my
Yeah.
child was it's in high school, but that is one way to do it. And that is something that probably when you move to another country, as a parent, you need to look for ways to do these social groups and find these social groups that are also within your culture or that are integrated and diverse.
Right. Yeah. For me, the group that I was in had one Greek American and then everyone else was Greek. And so it was good for me in a lot of ways, because I had the one person who sort of understood what it was like for me to come into that culture. But also, I had access to people who could teach me the different things that I needed to know. Like, for example, in the US, if you have a baby and they're starting to eat solids, you might go buy food. In Greece, they don't sell baby food because everyone makes their own food. So it's things like that where language is part of it, but like you said, the culture is so different, and you need people who can help you understand that because observation is only going to help you part way.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I experience here. And as your child grows, you need to know the things that you knew 2 years ago are no longer
Yeah.
adaptable at the moment. Then you have to go to the next thing and the next thing. Like right now, my daughter is in high school, so I'm trying to figure out a lot of things, and I only have one. So
Yeah.
so it is a forever. One of the things that people don't realize is when you immigrate to another country is a long commitment, a long commitment. And number two is is ever changing. It's all the time changing because things change and you're always learning something new and you don't know absolutely everything. So many people ask you, so you don't know how to do that? I didn't even know I had to do it.
Yeah. No. The answer is no.
What is that? Yes, so it is incredible because we're having in I love this conversation because we're having this of an American living in another country, learning another language, and going through these transitions that usually happen in your country for
Mhm.
other people.
Right.
And how was to learn for you Greek?
So Greek, it has its own alphabet, which means it's a non-Latin alphabet. So for me, it was a little bit easier because I had the benefit of studying ancient Greek when I was in university. So I knew the letters. However, they were all pronounced differently than what I learned in college because modern is different than ancient Greek. And also, if we're being honest, the way that the scholastic community approaches ancient Greek is very whitewashed. We should be pronouncing it the way that Greeks tell us to because they know the language. They've had it a lot longer.
Oh, amazing. And then you start realizing there are things that you were like, wait a minute, this was wrong. I realize that this has been wrong my whole life? In
Yeah, and it for us, we had little kids, so they were learning it so much faster. So that's one of the things that was pretty discouraging as an adult is like you're trying so much harder than they are, and they're really fast. But I will say, like after we moved back to the US in 2018, my kids forgot almost all the Greek really quickly, and then my husband and I retained almost everything. However, when we went back to Greece this summer, my oldest daughter remembered everything, like everything came flooding back. And at some point, she's like, Mom, stop translating for me or stop interpreting for me, right? Because interpreting is when you do the speech part, translation is when you do the written part. So she's all, you can stop interpreting for me. I understand everything. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I don't understand. So I was just giving you overviews, but it's a it's a difficult language to learn, and for us, I think it was even more difficult because it was almost impossible for us to be immersed because when people would hear us speak English to each other, they realized, oh, I can practice my English if they knew any English. And so they didn't speak Greek to us, and that would have helped if they would have stayed in Greek at least like 30 minutes out of our time together.
Yes, but this is very interesting because um, I want to understand when you go to another country as an American, you find people that speak English, and the same happens to people that speak Spanish. You find people that speak all over the place.
Hmm.
But for instance, when somebody from Greece comes here, you don't find that you have to specifically go to a Greek community in order to find somebody that speaks their language.
Well, I would say that Greek Americans are not as interested in learning Greek as they used to be. It was impossible for us when we moved here to find a Greek tutor for our kids. Like we tried, we went to Greek Orthodox churches, we looked everywhere. And when we would hear them speaking Greek, we're like, oh, our Greek is better than theirs. Because which makes sense because they haven't lived there. We have. So I think that this is sort of a common theme that we're seeing with fourth and fifth generation of immigrants. And I hope that this trend doesn't continue because it's so valuable for us to keep these languages going. And it connects us. There's something that happens in your heart when you speak the language of your family, I think. And I would hate for the following generations to miss out on that.
Yes, it is beautiful. Like I kept my daughter speaking Spanish, and that was the very first thing that I did. I just spoke Spanish with her all the time, but then we had the majority of our friends were Americans, so whenever we went out of the house, we spoke English. Immediately, my daughter, since she was months old, she was fully bilingual. She understand. She didn't speak English until she was like in school, like when she
Right.
started going to daycare.
Kindergarten.
Then
Hmm.
she started like speaking. Like she started going to daycare like at 3, I think,
Okay.
2.5. So then she started like speak fluently English, and we're like, oh, she speaks. She was just not around it all the time, and she didn't have to. She will just talk to me in Spanish.
Right. And also
Hi, I'm very happy to know you are here watching our podcast today. It is an honor to be featuring so many entrepreneurs on the journeys of their inside voice, their accent that is not an accident. And we want to reach out more people like you who are creating a better world of diversity, inclusiveness, equity, and belonging. So please take a moment to hit the subscribe button below, like, and share to others. And if even if you want to leave a comment, that'll be nice. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode.
Right. And also, there are speech delays that happen when kids are learning more than one language at the same time from birth. So, whereas, if you're learning one language at home, you're speaking one language at home, then they'll start speaking, one, one and a half, two, and they'll start speaking a lot. But if you're trying to have them be bilingual by speaking more than one language at home, then normally they don't start speaking more until two and a half or three. And so a lot of families will think that there's something wrong and that the child is confused and they'll stop teaching them both languages. But really, you just need to hold on a little bit longer and then they'll be able to speak both fluently.
Yeah, because the brain is learning absolutely everything, and they are just the brain is just it have to divide and understand when to speak what language. Um, so one of the things is my daughter was always speaking Spanish since she was a baby because that was the mother language. That was what we
Right.
spoke all the time at home. So she will be speaking that, but she took a little longer to start speaking in English. Um,
Yeah.
so she will like do like the sign language because she also learned sign language. She's not fluent now anymore, but she used to, like I want something to eat, I'm sad, things
Yeah.
like that. And then, but it is important. I've seen kids that are at the age of 5, they understand 4 languages.
It will because it opens up pathways. There's neural pathways that are forming. And when you're small, your neural pathways are forming at an accelerated rate. Sorry, one of my things that I geek out on all the time is brain science because I love understanding how my brain works. But like for example, my youngest daughter, she spoke some Hungarian. Like that was her first language that she spoke because we were hungry. And the Hungarian people just really loved her. We gave her a Hungarian name, so that endeared them to her. But she also had like these giant cheeks. Uh, so she was speaking Hungarian phrases first, and then it was English at home. And then she went into Greek school and started learning Greek. And she was the only one in our family who had no accent when she spoke Greek. She spoke like a national and
Yeah.
she can't remember any Hungarian. She can't remember very much Greek, but she's learning French now and she's picking it up so fast because those pathways are open to her.
Yes, yes, exactly. And it is very important. And you just mentioned something, how important it is to learn another language. And one of the things that you love to talk about is this, how learning other language helps your creativity.
Yes, so there's actual proof that if you don't necessarily have to learn the language, but if you go and attempt to fully engage with a culture that's outside of your own, you will naturally be a more creative person for the rest of your life. Isn't that awesome?
That is incredible. Yes. So, and you don't even like one of the things that I tell people here in US, you have no idea how wonderful this country is until you actually open your eyes and realize that you can travel around the world and you have it in your backyard.
Yes. I mean, so I grew up in Los Angeles, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was more prone to wanting to be more adventurous in where I lived, because my best friends growing up were Filipino, Puerto Rican, Mexican, and just all these different groups outside of my own group, my own family who was mostly from Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma that had moved to California. And because of that, I grew up like thinking, oh, if you get the fish eye, you're lucky. I grew up realizing that there are all these other cultures and languages, and that there these things have enriched my life instead of I just want to be closed off in this little camp with my family only. And, my parents were very encouraging of that. They were like, yes, of course, we'll drive you to this festival with your friend and we'll go eat food and hang out and listen to the music. And I think that helped me not only be more creative, but be more curious because I know there's more than one way to sing. And that's a valuable skill to have.
And you are touching a very important point. When you do that, when you are exploring and you're going, and you don't really have to become their best friend. You just have to go to a festival. There are
Yeah.
festivals, like right now we're in the Hispanic month, and we're also doing, October is over, but we were in the German October Beer Fest as well. We had Jom Kippur. We have so many things around the year that you can cultivate to your family to explore other cultures and see how they do things and listen to the music, see how they interact, listen to other people speaking other languages without having to judge that, but actually learn how and there are many words, like for instance, when people Italians and Hispanic can speak to each
Yes,
other and they
they're so
understand
close.
almost everything without
Right.
having to speak the same language. The same with Portuguese. We understand each other without having the same language. I had a friend, a really good friend, who is from Brazil. And when I was learning English, her mom came to visit her for a few months. And at the end, it was three friends, one from Mexico, the girl from Brazil, and myself from Colombia. And at the end, when the mama was leaving, we were almost bilingual. We almost spoke Portuguese because her mom didn't speak English. So we had to learn, how do you say this, to tell her, how it is to speak to her, and she will understand that Spanish, our Spanish, but she will prefer, like we were curious. We were like, no, no, we want to say it in Portuguese.
And
And
Portuguese is such a beautiful language too.
yes, so it's easy. And there are many languages that, for instance, I'm sure probably Greek is easier for you to learn or German than it will be French or Spanish. Well, French it will be.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I do know some Spanish. I feel like French would be really hard. The problem with it, and I mean, it's not a problem, but the difficulty with German and Greek is that they're declined languages. So they have accusative, genitive, dative, and vocative forms, which first feels very intimidating, but then you realize, oh, this just helps me know when to use what form of the verb. So I think it can be sort of intimidating because in English, we don't have any of those systems because it's sort of a hodgepodge of lots of languages, um, which makes
Yeah.
it, I think, difficult to learn, honestly, because we don't have those systems in place. But I would say if you want to learn a declined language like German or Greek, just give yourself a year. Give yourself an extra time because we use some of those conventions in English. We just don't know what they're called. So give yourself a break, I think.
Yes, and I love this. So one of the things is, you experience learning other languages, seeing other cultures, and you came to realize something that you didn't think before, which was when somebody's going to learn English, it's not that easy.
No. Yeah. So I was talking to my kids about this because I was like, I'm going to talk about you on a podcast today. They're like, oh no, what are you going to say? But I was like, well, do you remember when I was teaching you to read in English? You already knew how to read in Greek. You already knew how to speak and do all of the school things in Greek because you went to Greek school. And you were all so angry about learning to read in English because you kept saying, this doesn't make sense. These three different words are spelled differently and they mean different things, but they sound exactly the same. Or why are some of these letters silent? That doesn't, or why is it when in these cases it sounds like an S, but other cases a C sounds like a K? Because Greek is a phonetic language, which means all the letters always sound the same, and you just change the intonation accents. In English, we don't have any accents. So you just have to learn the intonation on your own. And even still, I moved from, Southern California to Western Pennsylvania, and they could tell that I wasn't from here because of the emphasis I would put on certain words. They're like, "Oh, you're not from here. You don't know how to say the name of this gas station." I'm like, "We need accents in English, I think would be helpful."
And that is magnificent. Like when we had our previous meeting, we talk about these when I said there are words that I don't say because they sound like something different and usually will not be good words. So I realized that sometimes I just have to say, okay, let me spell that word for you. What I would like to say, I'm going to spell it to you. And then people go, oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, I had the same thing happen in Greek where I would learn something the wrong way and then I couldn't unlearn it and I would just be like, I know I said that wrong. I'm sorry. Like just you know what I mean, right? And they would be like, yes, okay.
And then sometimes because of the way your nature, the way you have been talking your whole life, there
Hmm.
are enunciations and phonetics that your mouth can just not say. Like it is very difficult. So
Right. And also some languages are missing sounds that your heart language or your home language has. Like for example, in Greece, no one could pronounce my name with American English because they don't have a short I sound at all. It doesn't exist. So instead of Kristen, my name was Christine, always. And it was just something that I had to get used to because they just don't have the sound. There's no way they're going to say my name as Kristen ever,
yes, like I think I do Christine.
which is fine because I'm totally used to it because of living in Greece for 7 years.
And it is funny, like even people when they say my name, it is very difficult for them. They will cut off the MA, or they will say Ritz, or they will say and then they cannot say the rest.
Yeah.
Um, but some people will just call me Maritza without the T, and it's fine. I never get mad.
Well, in Greek,
I
actually, the TZ makes a J sort of sound. So it would be Maritza, which is not how your name sounds at all. Because they don't have a J sound. They also don't have an H sound. So yeah, I mean that's like I have a friend who is she's Indian, right? And she lives in Canada and she cannot say my name as Kristen. And I don't care. We don't care. Like we joke about it all the time. I'm like, my name is pronounced this way by you, Dr. Farr, right? Like, and I love it. I love the way that my name sounds coming from you because it sounds different
yeah.
and our relationship is unique and to me that's what that reminds me of.
And that is all. And the other thing that I would like to talk about and give you an opportunity is I would like to talk about what you do and how you help business.
Yeah, so actually I was really excited to come on your show because I am a business communication expert. I talk about how to communicate all day long. It's my favorite thing. And I help businesses understand how to simplify their communication, how to get rid of the big words that maybe the person that needs their help will not understand. And I help them simplify also their offers through offer creation because maybe I know what it's to look and create SOPs and get better ROI and all of these fun acronyms that we use all the time. But someone who needs my help, they have no idea what these letters mean. So I come in, we take things down to the bare basic level, and that's how we create business foundation. So as a copywriter, as a certified copy editor, I'm really passionate about using language well to be more inclusive and to help more people understand instead of just using all these fancy words to make ourselves feel really smart and then no one knows what we're talking about.
And I love that. And you also help with content creation as well. And then copywriting and ghostwriting. I love that.
Yeah, so I'm not really big on content creation, but like what the work I do, it is the foundation for any communication, so you can use it to create content. And I guess I'm just like collecting ways of writing for money, apparently, because that's what I've been doing for years. Because it's a huge passion of mine. Actually, I have a math learning disability called dyscalculia. And so math concepts are difficult for me. And that's why I've always leaned into words. I didn't realize that until I was an adult. But because I understand words so much better, I want to help other people understand.
Yes, that is beautiful. Thank you for that. And it's a beautiful purpose. And then also one of the things that is um, important, and I wanted to ask you if you have any other thought, but before that, I wanted to say that you are the best example to tell people out there to be inclusive only to go out there and explore.
Yes, and I think my perspective is I'm an American. I grew up in Southern California and I only benefited from learning about other cultures by meeting people from different backgrounds whose parents were from different countries. And what I would say to people who maybe are overly cautious or they're nervous about interacting with people from other cultures is you will only learn more things about the world and about yourself. And also, learning English is really hard. Like, we all need to have more grace for each other. And until you sort of go into a country where you don't speak the language, you're trying to learn the language, you don't understand how difficult that is, how everything you're doing feels hard. Everything, going grocery shopping, just talking to your neighbor, trying to pick out a donut at the donut shop used to give me a panic attack, right? So we all need that grace and appreciation that we're trying our best, and that has to be enough.
Oh, I love that. I love it. And I really thank you for being here. How can people contact you?
I hang out on LinkedIn a lot, but you can also go to my website for my company, Literary Symmetry. If you go to litsym.com, litsim.com, it will take you to see all of the fun things. And also, I have a podcast, Your Business Story, where I help amazing business owners like Maritza share their unique stories because we can always learn really important things from each other.
Thank you so much, Christine. Is there any other or last thought that you would like to leave people with?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to double down on like, let's give each other more grace. Let's try to be more understanding, passionate. That's only going to make this world better.
I double that. And remember, you were loved and you're here because God, the source or a greater force brought you here with love, to be loved and love one another. Till next time, bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.